Hello, my special friends. Welcome back to the foreboding world of the neon gutter. My name is Burt Cohen. On this podcast, we're taking you back in time to the Las Vegas of the 1980s and 90s, where our heroes, college friends from the comedy club at UC Irvine, made regular trips to Vegas, not to take advantage of the entertainment capital of the world, but to use Las Vegas to entertain themselves. On our first few episodes, we covered the earliest trips that the boys took to Vegas, staying at Vegas World and elsewhere, and the hijinks that ensued. But today, we're going to be talking about some of the other unique Vegas establishments they frequented. So let's get to it. Let me introduce you to my two co-hosts. Hi, Matt.
Hello, Bert. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you. And hello, Dan.
Hello, boy. Word, boy. That's going to be my new thing.
That's unfortunate.
All right, we'll talk about that after we stop recording.
Let's never talk about that again.
Trying to forget that. Let's talk about Las Vegas, because while Vegas is known around the world as having some of the largest, most extravagant hotels in the world, Vegas is also home to some of the seediest and scariest hotels and motels on the planet. And you guys have stayed in many of them. Let's talk about where you've stayed and why you have stayed in these horrible, horrible places.
I'd love to.
They weren't that bad. Well, okay, they were pretty bad.
They were pretty bad.
They were pretty bad.
We're talking about Las Vegas in the late 80s and early 90s, and as we've described, it was a time of kind of disrepair for the city. Actually, this is more in the late 80s. Hadn't really started to rebuild, so there was still a lot of real estate on the Strip that was not developed the way it is now, and that was remnants from an earlier time. If you watch the original Ocean's 11, you'll see like this is the original with Frank Sinatra and the Rat Pack, and they go into I think it's the Flamingo in the movie, but it looks like a Denny's. It's this one-story building in there, and so when we first started going to Vegas, some of the architecture still looked like one-story small little places right on the Strip. Hard to believe these days.
The Sands had the original, sort of circular motif sign and stuff out front and everything for many years, and for sure.
As you came into Vegas, you saw the hotels in the distance, but really what you mostly saw was parking lots and motels. So as you came into town, you saw like the Desert Rose and you saw the Glass Pool Inn and these places that filled the space in the 60s and 70s and were probably pretty nice, and you could actually have a vacation there. But by the time we got there, they, just like the rest of Las Vegas, was in disrepair and decline, and they didn't have the deep pockets that the casinos had, and so they were in further decline. I'd say they were getting much worse.
Yeah,
I have a lot of memories of the Glass Pool Inn as you came into town, even in the days when I came, which was a little later, but that stuck around for a long time, which was it was, a motel that had a big sort of above ground pool right on the Strip, and the sides of the pool were glass. And so you could see the people as they were diving in or swimming around. It was bizarre, but it was memorable as something to see.
I would say at that time, it was interesting that was kind of the attractive, like exciting, cutting edge thing, like this glass pool.
Yeah.
And now it looks like Times Square when you go. It's all the digital billboards and the, continual visual bombardment. And in the time we went, there was no digital signs and they weren't nearly as big. And so, seeing a glass pool is like, hey, look at that. And also kind of, hey, look like that. That's kind of gross.
Yeah. There's like... There was the Flamingo, then there was a motel, there was Caesar's Palace, then there was a motel just along the Strip. And what was interesting was those places had probably once been fairly nice, but then as you went north and you got out of the Strip and you head toward downtown, then you got into the places that were rent by the hour, really dark, really spooky looking places. The Fun City Motel was down there on the way to the Strip, to downtown.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And places that just looked pretty eerie. And they were definitely way down on their luck at that point. They had no advertising budget. I think they were just taking whoever came into town without a room and would pay cash.
They had a Las Vegas Boulevard address. So a lot of people, as we discussed before the internet, you picked out a hotel from the Yellow Pages or something and called around and, it had a Las Vegas Boulevard address. It seemed like it was on the Strip. but these places were not, and they were definitely not strip hotels.
That's right. Or as you did as I did the first time, I told my friends, there's so many rooms in Vegas. You don't need to reserve one. You just show up because there's thousands of rooms. And I was actually incorrect. And so we did end up in a motel. We ended up at the Sulinda Motor Hotel.
So that area that you're talking about that's like north of Sahara Boulevard on the Strip, that was called the Naked City, right? Or maybe still is today.
Yeah, it might still be called the Naked City, but it's not the Naked City it was. It was scary, and that's what it was called. It was called the Naked City, and that's where the motels really started piling up, and they were really rent by the hour or hourly or weekly. I don't know that many people actually rented by the day. It was mostly hourly or weekly. And you had Fun City, you had the Thunderbird, you had the Sulinda, you had a lot of the Boulevard Motel. These were all places that were really eerie looking, and you knew things happening there were not okay, even in a town like Las Vegas, which already was supposed to be a place where you could get away with things.
Why'd they call it the Naked City?
They called it that apparently because the showgirls stayed in the apartments in that area, and they would suntan naked by the pools to keep their luster. This is back in the 50s and 60s. But again, this area was never nice, but it certainly got much worse by the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, by the time the 80s and 90s rolled around, there was nobody sunbathing out in that neighborhood. But what if
there was a dead body by the swimming pool, it probably had a bullet hole in it at that point.
But at least clothes on it.
But what I was also always fascinated by in that neighborhood is that you had these really cheap by the hour motels next to a lot of the wedding chapels.
Wedding chapels, right?
Yeah, so people were getting married, and like I think that scene in The Hangover where they go to a wedding chapel is in that neighborhood. You have people getting married amidst some of the scariest motels and the scariest neighborhood in town.
Yeah. And the other thing that was really popular in the Naked City area was adult boutiques. So peep shows, not quite strip clubs. Strip clubs are a little more high end, but more like video booths and adult magazines and toys and that kind of stuff in that area.
And there was the Exterminator too, that building with the big roaches painted
on Charleston. That's right.
Yeah.
I always felt like they were targeting us with that.
So Matt, you mentioned the Sulinda, and I know on our previous episode about your first time, I know you talked a little bit about the Sulinda, and Dan, you talked a little bit about your first time staying at the Westward Ho, which really was on the Strip proper.
That was on the Strip proper, and that was before I knew Matt. It was a family trip, and we stayed there because it was cheap. We had a big family reunion. I am one of four brothers. I lose track sometimes how many of us there are, but my folks had
especially in Las Vegas. It's hard
also
to keep
true. And we had relatives coming from St. Louis, and we were just trying to economize. And so I'm sure it was just like you said. They looked in the yellow pages, saw a cheap motel, Westward Ho, Las Vegas Boulevard. This is I think where Phil and I came up with the word Scrotel. It was not a motel. This was a Scrotel. I don't think that needs any further description, but I can give you a description of the Scrotel, the Westward Hole, which was like
I can already see and smell the kind of place you're talking about.
Yeah. There was a lot of Formica. I remember that.
It looked like it had been a military base, like not built as a hotel, but had been like barracks, because it was like this just series of kind of drab beige buildings, one after the next after the next. I was going to say it had a swimming pool, but it had multiple swimming pools, very small, like hot tub sized swimming pools at each like hotel building. So it was this kind of cookie cutter kind of series of here's the building, here's the tiny pool, here's the building, here's the tiny pool. Kind of going back, now that I think about it, maybe there's only a pool every other time, but there was a couple of them, and all like urine warm and just just going back way off the strip.
That's a really good point. The thing about the Westward Hole, it was had a store, it had a strip front, it had the neon lights, it had a casino in front. But what you didn't realize is how far back those 2-story motel buildings went. They just went back forever,
on and on. Yeah, and my family was used to staying in cheap places because we did a lot of cross country travel, so it didn't really seem like anything different to me. But certainly, considering that was my first impression of Las Vegas as a Las Vegas stay, it was like, oh, this place is like anywhere else. Yeah, a dump.
But yeah, you might describe it that way, but I know the Westward Ho. I've been in the Westward Ho many times because it was right there on the strip, and it was had a real casino, and
it did.
It was small, but it was a real place. You guys have stayed in much worse places than that. So let's get down and dirty on some.
Burt, you never stayed at the Westward Hole, did you?
I don't think I did. We could talk about this another time, but some of my introduction to some of the worst places in town is because I always had a goal of trying to stay in every place that had a casino in town, and I don't think I ever made it at the Westward Ho before it closed.
We have to get into some.
That was definitely a goal. So that's a regret of mine for sure.
You could actually just go check in tonight at the local Motel 6 and get pretty much the same experience.
But I bet they don't have 25-cent strawberry margaritas.
That's true.
The local Motel 6 like the Westward Ho had.
You can make your own.
True.
One of the places worse than the Westward Hole was the Gold Key. This was again right on the strip. It was on the Las Vegas, boulevard. Again, low, squat, 2-story. Looks just like any small town hotel or road stop hotel. I think what made it so bad was just lack of care. There were dead pigeons by the swimming pool. So
I thought you were going to say dead bugs or something, but dead pigeons.
Yes,
by the pool. They had a pool, right? It's kind of nice they had a pool, but you weren't going to go swim because there were actually dead birds by the pool.
And it was really close to the Stardust, which was a pretty nice hotel at that time.
At the time, that's right.
But yeah, the Gold Key was awful. That was Dan, Mike, Phil, and I stayed at the Gold Key.
We came out from around, driving in from Southern California, and you drive around this bend and come down. And I think there's a military base where they were doing some testing or some bomb testing. I'm trying to figure out what that schmutz was. We came out of the desert and there was a sticky amber pollution on the back of the window of the car. It was like nothing I'd ever seen before. And we stayed at the Gold Key that time, and Phil took some towels out to the car and cleaned his car window with those towels, making the Gold Key even worse. They were so bad. So I guess we were just keeping up the vibe, let's just say.
That place was pretty bad, but it became a shopping center later. And I think they call it the Gold Key Shopping Center right on the strip.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
But
that's what I was going to mention, was that some of these places, including like Silver City, I think they've kept like the signs and the Gold Key. And so you might have, anybody that's visiting Las Vegas today, you might even recognize these names and have seen the signs, but the motels aren't there, but they've got it's a strip mall instead of a hotel now.
Yeah. And I remember when we stayed at the Gold Key, we came into town and we got there and we went into our room and we're like, well, this is disappointing. And our standards were very low.
They were already low. I don't know if we had already stayed at that point, but I think later on, I don't know if it was before or after the Gold Key, but we used to stay often at the Tam O'Shanter. Friendliest accommodations on the strip. Yeah.
And again, right smack dab on the strip.
Across the street from Caesars.
Caesars, that's right. Yeah. Right. So, yeah, you're right next to Caesar's Palace in this tiny little place. It had a tam, like what is that, a Scottish hat or an Irish hat?
Yeah, like a beret, kind of almost like a Scottish beret almost that would
with
spin. Although
exactly.
in the years that I was going, it was always had like a big chunk broken out of it. And
right. When we started going, the tam was complete. But over the years, pieces, there's a giant sign out front that just said motel. And on top of that was the tam, this this tartan or whatever the motif was, but this plaid cam hat. And over the years, I think it did originally rotate, but over the years, it started falling apart. So by the time we stopped staying at the TAM, there was very little TAM left on the sign. Yeah, so they had a swimming pool right on the strip, and they advertised that their pool was open 24 hours a day. And I do remember taking advantage of that once, like, really? And so we went swimming like at midnight on the strip.
But when you say on the strip, it is literally
right
on the strip. Like
there's a sidewalk.
If you're walking, if you're walking down the strip, you could spit into that pool without any problem. It was right.
I wish you hadn't
there.
Said that.
Damn it! That's what that was.
Today, if you walk down the strip, if it's not a CVS or a Walgreens, it's a giant resort. There's nothing similar to that. But it might be difficult for people to imagine, but it was literally if you're walking down the strip, you could get splashed by the water in the pool if anybody was in it.
This was a motel, so this swimming pool was the size slightly larger than a backyard swimming pool. It wasn't a giant pool; it was just a little motel pool, but it was right on the strip.
Nothing fancy.
Yeah,
nothing fancy.
I never even thought about it. Like it was it kind of an exhibitionist thing to do to swim in that pool.
There had to be hundreds of people walking by all the time.
Yeah, Phil must have thought of that because he always took his pants off.
But that we stayed there pretty frequently. It was $44 a night. I kind of remember that. We would divide that between the four of us, Matt, Phil, Mike, and I, or sometimes six of us if others had gone along with us. Others had gone.
Did they even change their rates like during the week and the weekend, or it was always $44 a night and that was it? And they didn't want to complicate the math.
Hell if I know. We never went on the weekdays.
Yeah. We only went on Saturdays. Yeah. That was the other thing is they would accept you if you showed up on a Saturday there.
Well, there was a Magic Fingers bed in there. We put a quarter into that and found out that it was broken and did not stop. Like the Magic Fingers bed just kind of... It was really Magic Fingers.
25 cents to start the Magic Fingers and $400 to stop the Magic Fingers.
Well, we were torn like, wow, this is a pretty great value. Do we stop it? But ultimately, I think we had to pull the bed away from the wall to unplug it.
Yeah, I think that's right. I remember pulling it out and finding the plug. I'm like, okay, that was weird.
That's enough. One time we stayed there, and I don't know why we did this. We always took the art off the walls in motel rooms.
We just fucked around with everything in the rooms. We would just do that. We'd jump on the beds, open the drawers. Because, again, before you get into the story, I mean, the whole point was we were there to make each other laugh. So we would grab any object or any opportunity in reach to try to say, is this funny? Let's see what the other guys think about it. Is this funny? Hey, Gideon's Bible, can we do something with that? Is that funny?
So we took the art off the walls, and apparently we weren't the only ones, because when I took the painting, or whoever took the painting, it might have been Phil, I don't remember, took the painting off the wall. On the back it said, you can have sex with the fat woman at the front desk for $50. Well, I hope that to be true. I didn't try to find out.
Well, it was $44 a night to stay there, so we felt.
Yeah, that's a little bit pricey.
Yeah, pricey.
Yeah, and I don't know, is $50 for everyone or $50 individually? Because the room was $44 for all of us.
Did you have to take the painting up to the front desk like it was a coupon?
It was a coupon, yes. I think it was $60 without the painting.
Bring the painting.
There's an old school fun book right there.
Yeah. Exactly.
But the thing was, there was a fat woman at the front desk.
Yeah. And that's the kind of place we stayed.
Yeah. Yeah, that place was actually one of the nicer dumps. It was a dump, without a doubt, but it was one of the nicer ones.
The sign said friendliest accommodations on the strip, and at the time, I don't think they were wrong. It was friendly. Yeah, it was easy for us, and you could just leave your stuff there and walk up and down the strip all day and not think about it.
Oh, the location actually of the Tam O'Shanter would have been really kind of cool because you walk out of your room and you're literally right on the strip. Yeah. And, it's similar to the El Cortez vintage rooms today in that you can walk out of your room down, a small flight of stairs and you're right at the craps table. You're right in the casino. You don't have to walk down a huge hallway like some of the mega resorts and wait 10 minutes for an elevator and that kind of stuff.
Go through the mall.
Walk another 10 minutes to get out to the strip. And
that's the other thing.
It's super convenient.
To what you were saying before, like nowadays on the strip, like you have to walk quite a ways. I mean, some of the casinos are right there, but to get to rooms or get to anything, or the pool, it's way back in there,
I was just thinking we could get from the Tam O'Shanter to the Caesar's Palace Casino faster than you could park your car and get to the casino at Caesar's now because of where the parking garages are.
Exactly true. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet you could have got into Caesar's Casino faster than someone staying at Caesar's.
I think so. You should talk to Matt about all the places that Bob Stupak. We talked about Bob Stupak. We've been talking about Bob Stupak's Vegas World, and that was a shithole in itself.
But he owned several smaller shitholes around it for his overflow capacity. He owned, he would buy up this is the Naked City. So he'd buy up these dumpy motels around Vegas World and call them Vegas World Chalet, Vegas World Manor. And then he bought the Thunderbird, which was a down on its luck hotel casino in Naked City that was just a motel by the time he got it. And so, yeah, we stayed in those. They were pretty awful, but they were just motels and they just said Vegas World on them. And sometimes they would give you like an extra $50 in action in the casino to make you stay there rather than actually stay in the Vegas World Hotel. So that was a pretty great deal for us because we didn't care. But yeah, they were dumpy, and they had real small swimming pools. And Dan, you remember the one time we did swim? I think it was at the Vegas World Manor. We all went swimming. Yeah. The pool was so small.
It was like an oval, and this is something Phil and I used to do in pools. When you basically get everyone on the edge of the pool and get everyone walking in the same direction, clockwise or counterclockwise. And it was a small enough pool where 6 or 8 of us on that trip, got a whole whirlpool going in that particular pool, getting the thing swirling, sloshing out of the edges. And then after you've put in the effort, you can just sort of sit and ride the current for a while around the oval. You know what I'm remembering too is there was a time in my life where I would never hesitate to take my pants off. I remember kind of jumping in naked in one of those pools in the middle of the day. I don't know if you've blocked that out, Matt, but it's
I had.
Now you remember.
Yes.
And you're related to Phil, right? Because we've already discussed that he often took his pants off.
Yeah, it's something that runs in the family, I guess. Speaking of Phil, I think we need him to come up with a term for like a shithole that has other shitholes orbiting around it, which is kind of what the Stupak system was.
So there's certain things that distinguish and define a shithole. One is they almost always had floral bedspreads. Yep. I think the best to hide stains. They always had shag carpeting that was well past its expiration date. They almost always had the toilet in a separate room than the sink. So like the sink was just in the room.
Sure. God, I never noticed. You're totally right.
Yeah, that's and the other thing motel is
probably the most attractive and appealing thing about them was your car was right outside.
That's true. That's true.
Which you cannot say about any casino anymore. Or these weren't casinos, but anyway, you just hop in your car and you go. It was right there.
And then there's the 300 denier sheets too. You always get those with polyester, easy to wash,
scratchy,
stain resistant.
A TV that might or might not work. I mean, it was a big deal if the TV had cable. Almost always we just had local channels, and even then, sketchy reception.
So these places sound cheap and not the nicest places. But what's the worst place that you stay? What's the worst motel you ever stayed at in Las Vegas? Can you remember?
You'll have to say it. I know you're going to save it for a different episode, Matt, but I know what your worst is.
For me, we'll talk more about this because it deserves an episode to itself. But absolutely, the Western was the worst place I ever stayed. I stayed there 1 month before the Clark County Health Board shut it down, and deservedly so.
So this
was really pretty awful, and that was the Western Hotel Casino downtown. But we'll talk about that more. And the fact that it was $16 a night. This was even into the early 2000s, $16 a night.
Yeah, like 1/3 of what the Tam O'Shanter was.
Yeah, right.
Amazing. Yeah.
A decade and a half later. This is off the downtown strip, so all the way past all the places downtown out in
past El Cortez.
And they had rules too. You couldn't get a room there if you had a Nevada driver's license. You had to be from out of state. And they had a cap on how many days you could stay there. Yeah, because $16, man, if you're a prostitute, the cheaper the room, the more the profit.
I'll take your word for it, Matt. You know better than I.
Trust me.
I think it was maybe not the worst room, but the worst night I spent, I think, was actually at Circus Manor with Matt and Darren. It was an early trip.
So explain Circus Manor, because everybody knows the hotel Circus, but what was Circus Manor?
Again, an overspill place. Like they had built this separate. I think it was a tower. But they built this separate,
motels in the back. They were a series of motels in the back.
But maybe 2 stories, like a bottom floor and a top, a second floor.
I think they're still there.
I think they're still there. That's right. The decor was just
clowns.
Like nightmarish dark. Yeah, and clowns, of course, for Circus. The lights were... I think what made it so bad, though, was not necessarily the room, but I remember being really drunk that night. Really, on sugary, probably Southern Comfort and peppermint schnapps and...
Together.
Mixed.
Yeah, it was. That was a really dark room, and it was like pinkish and clowns, and you don't want to wake up and see a clown staring at you. It's happened so many times to me.
Plus, I think I had been saying "boy" so much that Matt was probably waking me up every few minutes in revenge.
Yeah, that was a really bad room too. And that's a couple tips for people. Anything that's called a manor or a garden room, that's just a motel. Yeah, that's a euphemism. Avoid garden rooms and manor.
Yeah, or set your expectations accordingly.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. In fact, I might even need to take a shower after hearing about some of these places. But
me too.
We'll try and make it quick, and we'll be back to talk about some of the colorful and not so colorful characters that you guys encountered while staying at these establishments. We'll be right back.
Looking for a room? How about a luxurious double room located in the center of the Glittery Strip? And it's on yours right now at the beautiful Gold Key Motel for just $19.95. Plus a full package of free and discount offers at many leading casinos and a free deck of cards used on the gaming tables of the major Las Vegas casino. The Gold Key Motel on the Strip, next door to the Desert Inn and across the street from the Stardust, offers a full 25% of our rooms at the special value of $19.95 Sunday through Thursday nights. A new free deck of casino playing cards is among the most sought-after souvenir items in Las Vegas. These are cards that were used in actual casino play. Your deck will be presented at the time we check in. A luxury row in the center of the Strip. A full package of free coupons and a free deck of casino playing cards, all for just $19.95. Mention this radio ad when checking in at the Gold Key.
Welcome back. We've been talking about some of the truly and hilariously awful places in Las Vegas. There are many of them. One place that I was always fascinated with, you guys, was El Rancho, which was like a boarded up casino on the North Strip. And it was boarded up for like over a decade, but the sign outside always said coming soon. And it was this crazy tease. Did you guys ever actually go into El Rancho while it was open?
We did. Yeah, because it was in the middle of stuff, so you could very easily Nevada gate from one. I forget what it was next to. It was across the street from Circus. So we went in. It was dead. It was always dead. Like
there's a reason it closed.
We went in on a Friday night one time, and the town was full. We went there to see if they had rooms available. The first time I ever went, and they were sold out. Huh. But then we went in there on Friday night because we were just walking around as we always did. And there was exactly one person playing in this entire casino. And this is a 1,000-room hotel. And it just blew our minds. There was one person. And there was like staff standing around, people had, at the tables dealing games, but there was nobody there. And I thought, this is so weird. There must be something wrong. So I remember talking to guys, or we decided, let's go back and check on Saturday night. And we went back on Saturday night. And it was exactly the same.
It was dead.
On a Saturday night.
Yeah, wow. And this is in the middle of the Strip. It's not like it was off the beaten path. It was right there. So it was just bizarre. It's like, what are you doing wrong? What is wrong with this casino? And obviously, it's understandable why it closed. But yeah, and the name El Rancho is kind of a historic name in town too.
Of course, one of the first resorts ever on the Strip.
But no, that place was always a ghost town. It was like I could have run laps in that casino and nobody would have said anything.
We're just glad to have you.
Now, you had to run into a bunch of wacky people. What kind of people stayed in these places along with you guys? It wasn't just a bunch of goofy college hipsters like you guys. Or influencers, Vegas influence, future Vegas influencers. What kind of people were also staying at these places while you were there?
We didn't encounter a lot of people. That was the kind of thing. Like, I don't remember ever having a conversation with anyone else there or talking to anybody else. I mean, obviously,
no pleasant interactions whatsoever.
There was some it feels like I could remember downcast gazes. I don't know.
I think there's a bit of shame. I think there was people were kind of embarrassed to be at these dumps, and then there's this. It was kind of appealing to me, this idea of something sinister or underhanded going on. And I always felt like some of the people there probably were there because they were doing things they shouldn't be doing. And so that was always part of the experience there. But most people were very businesslike, getting to and from their room. Nobody was just hanging out in the parking lot,
Or at the pool. I don't remember ever seeing anyone actually at the pool, the Gold Spike or the Tam O'Shanter. Maybe at the Tam, some families.
You mean the Gold Key?
The Gold Key, thank you, yeah.
Yeah. And the staff at these places, were they friendly and outgoing, looking for a good,
the
review in their suggestion box?
Very friendly.
Well, if you had $50,
and a painting, you had to read the painting.
And well, you needed the coupon,
It's weird. We spent a lot of time at those places, but we didn't spend a lot of time interacting with people. The staff was generally not friendly, but not unfriendly, just doing their job. And I always felt like they were judging us for checking into their motel.
I'll tell you the truth too. We were young enough that we didn't really complain or ask. Like if I were an adult now and wound up in a hotel like that, I might say, look, the towels are filthy. Could we have, or this isn't working, or the door is broken, or the magic fingers won't shut off. But I don't know. We never did that. Like, we never complained. So I don't know if they would have been, I'm guessing they would not have been too helpful, but who knows?
I don't think they would have cared. Yeah.
Yeah.
And how did you end up finding these places? It sounded like you stayed at a variety of these places. So as you continued to go back to Las Vegas, did you see a place and say, oh, we got to stay there next time? Or how did you pick out the next shithole to stay in?
You found them, Matt, so I'm curious.
I found them, but it was never like, oh, I got to stay at that place. It was always just dumb. It was always just dumb luck, The Tam O'Shanter, I think we chose because it was right on the strip. So I looked it up when we got home and called them because it was right there. So the location was the appealing thing there. The Gold Key, I think they probably had a sign saying that their rooms were really cheap. So I remembered that for the next trip.
A lot of places did have that, like their hotel rates on the billboards.
Sure.
And there was always that thing where I'd say, look, guys, this place rents by the hour. So if we go to bed at 2 a.m. and we get out of there by 10 a.m., let's work it out hour by hour. How much can we stay there? And they always had, back then you had a physical key. And you had a big warning on the key saying you're going to lose is $10 if you lost the key or whatever. But one of us had to walk around with that key all weekend in our pocket with a huge key fob or whatever, plastic fob.
Well, you could put it in a mailbox and it would get mailed for free if you found it. But at the Gold Key, I assume you got an actual gold.
It was
key.
gold.
It was probably worth more than $10.
That's right.
Yeah, we did melt it down in the room. I still have the earrings. The other thing too, the people at these places generally, and we did, paid cash. These were people that didn't have bank accounts, didn't have credit cards, that kind of thing. They were running on cash. I remember one time playing poker at Vegas World, and a guy sat down at the table and said he had just paid cash for a room nearby at one of the motels to Vegas World. And he was going to be in town for a week to play poker, and he lost his entire bankroll in about 2 hours. And so I have no idea what he's going to do for the next 6 days and 22 hours, but he was there for a week. He'd already paid for the room.
Wow. And
what did you guys do at these places outside of sleep for a few hours and maybe use the pool every once in a while when no one else was using it? What did you guys do at these crazy motels?
We would leave them. Every once in a while, we would play poker in the room, like just spread out on the bedspread with chips and cards, and just sort of sit in there and play, like, because we'd rather lose money to each other than the casinos. So that was kind of fun, but we didn't do a lot of hanging out in the rooms.
No, couldn't even watch TV. Although one time
Also
we were staying at one of them, and we were watching TV, and we saw the news break that Bobby Barasini, who was part of the Stardust show, was beating the orangutans in his comedy act.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Big news.
That's one of the more memorable things I remember, is sitting there and going, oh, and we were eating submarine sandwiches from somewhere while we saw that news. So sometimes we ate submarine sandwiches in the room too.
And something else I remember doing in the room is jumping on the beds. We did. Like, this room's not going to get any more fucked up. We might as well jump on the beds.
Yeah, we did spend a lot of time jumping on beds. I miss that.
Yeah, me too.
Well, that's a good time for us to take one more quick break. But when we return, we're going to talk about where the shitholes exist today and how you can make a reservation and stay in one of them. We'll be right back.
Don't drive around. Come on downtown to the Downtowner Motel, downtown Las Vegas. The best motel package in Las Vegas. A beautiful motel room for two, only $16.95. $16.95 for the room plus everything else. 4 free meals, free bacon and egg breakfasts, free personalized gifts, free dinners, plus free coffee, donuts, and Danish. Free TV in every room. Free local telephone calls, all for only $16.95 at the Downtowner Motel, downtown Las Vegas. Tell the desk clerk when you register you heard our commercial, and we'll also give you a gift certificate for a bottle of champagne. Free. The Downtowner Motel, just one short block from Downtown Casino Center, 8th and Ogden. Take the downtown freeway exit to 8th and Ogden. The best motel deal in Las Vegas. So don't drive around. Come on downtown to the Downtowner Motel.
Welcome back here in the Neon Gutter. So, Las Vegas in 2023 still has a lot of these low rent, truly terrible motels. Help our audience find out where are they and how can they stay there themselves, because I'm sure they're all chomping at the bit to stay at some of these places that still exist.
You're going to take this one. I have no idea.
Yeah, there still are. If you drive from the Strip to downtown, you're going to see places like the Todd Motel and the El Miramar. And if you go out on Boulder Highway, which is really downtown, but keep going east, there's still a lot of old rundown motels. There's one nice thing about them is they have some pretty cool neon signs. But behind those neon signs, there's some pretty awful motels. So there's still that opportunity to stay in a dump.
There's some good bed jumping to be had out there.
Absolutely. It's probably we're not going to do it as much anymore, but that's not to say that there isn't a next generation who can't go out there and destroy beds and take paintings off the walls. And
honestly, we should make a point of doing that next trip and going to Santa Cruz shithole, because it's been a while. Because lately we stay at places that are either have been refurbished or, and we aren't college students anymore.
We're not as invincible as we were back then, and not as naive about what can happen to you. I actually think about bed bugs now, which I never used to think about.
If you do go and you want to jump, this is a good challenge, is to jump over the nightstand, or actually stack the nightstands and then try to jump over from one bed to another. Just throwing that out there for the next generation. You're welcome.
I'd say, you know what? Go to a motel. If it's still got a phone book in the drawer, it's a shithole.
Yes.
You've hit gold.
And just check the date on the phone book too.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But do these places have websites? Can you book them in advance? How would you find one? Or outside of just driving down the street finding a vacancy sign, like you said, on a neon sign?
Most of them don't have a website, so you actually have to call them on some 702 phone number, or you have to just pull up into their parking lot where they still have no vacancy signs, so they still are catering to that crowd that's like just shows up and like, I need some place to sleep.
Oh, you just consult your travel agent. Just ask your professional travel agent. Please book me in the.
Yeah, what's the best half-star motel that you have?
Todd Motel. We were just saying that every building has its lifespan, and we were staying in places whose time had come, which are now in their graves, and some of the places that we saw being built that were very exciting when we saw them being built in the 90s are now kind of starting to reach that shithole stage.
Yeah.
There will always be shitholes, even though, the shithole hotels right on the Strip are a thing of the past.
We stayed
Exactly.
the places we stayed in now would probably be called vintage, but yeah, they go from they were all these places on the Strip back then, the Desert Rose, the Glass Pool Inn, the Tangiers, all had a theme and all had some grand dream at the beginning, and they slowly became shitholes. And like Dan said, there's a whole new generation of those. And even some of the major hotels and casinos that we grew up, or when we went, were like the nicest places in town, have become veritable shitholes.
Yeah.
That's a good tease for our next episode, because later on we're going to be talking about moving on up from terrible motels to terrible hotel and casinos. Plus, later on in the season, we're going to be doing some episodes recorded live directly from Las Vegas. You're definitely not going to want to miss that stuff. So please join us next time down here in the depths of the Neon Gutter. We'll see you next time.
The dice are cast, the cash won't last. Through these
The Neon Gutter is a Big Empire production. Randy Shandis, executive producer. Our incredible theme music is courtesy of Rosin Coven. Do you have something to say? Call our voicemail line at 775-400-2941. And for more episodes, vintage photographs and video, contact info, and those amazing trip reports, visit us at neongutter.com.
no regret.
Vegas Haiku number 4. Do not look closely. Don't look at all. Light no lights and you'll see no rats.
I've got crabs.